Hi guys, and welcome to our video today on the notes on graphing. Graphing is something we'll be using throughout the year, and I just want to go over the rules for science in terms of graphing, because again, the problem is math class has certain rules, science class has certain rules. Even if you do them in other classes, you might have stuff in your minds and ways that you learned in the past, and I just want to make sure you're clear with science expectations. All right, so first thing, we're going to be doing experiments, or at least plotting simulated data from an experiment. So in terms of our labeling, so that's the first thing we have to be concerned about. The x-axis of the graph, which you guys know is the horizontal, that is always going to be what's called the independent variable. And the independent variable in the experiment is the one you're manipulating, the one you're changing in the experiment. So if you notice, it says independent heating time in minutes. That means that person started the stopwatch, so that's the thing that they're manipulating in the experiment. Okay. The y-axis, on the other hand, is called the responding variable, also known as the dependent variable, and this is the one you're going to be measuring in the experiment. So this temperature example, it's temperature of heated water over time. So basically, the stopwatch is started by the experimenter, and then every minute it looks like they're taking the temperature. So that's why that goes on the y-axis. So that's often a hard thing to figure out for a lot of students. Okay, so properly labeling units also. In parentheses, you should have the units next to whatever you're labeled. So this is in minutes, this is in degrees Celsius on the y. Also, pick numbers that go up easily, and you don't have to start with 0 all the time. You can start with the lowest data number if it works, but do go up by easy numbers. So go up by 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, hundreds. Depending on data, you have to make sure your data all fits on your graph. Okay, but make sure it's an easy one to go by, because you have to know what the values are in between the numbers you're labeling to get accurate plotting of your graph. So just make sure you do that properly and follow that rule. Okay, titling your graph, you're supposed to discuss all the variables in your title. So in the case of the one you just saw, temperature of heated water, actually didn't do that 100% proper. It should be temperature of heated water over so many minutes. You could do a more descriptive title, and that's actually a better way to go about things. Also, you got to make a key if you have multiple lines to plot. Use patterns or different colors. Some people do that. So obviously, if you don't have colors, you could do the dashed or dotted lines and make a key for each of those things. Also, plot neatly. Use pencil. Mistakes can happen. So if we're plotting on paper, make sure you're using pencil. We are going to be using Jamboard this year. So Jamboard I will also use for plotting. But generally, if I can, I would have you guys plot on paper, take a picture, and then upload it to your lab. I feel that's the more effective way, and also gives you guys more practice, because on the Regents exam you guys have to plot by hand. So either way, you got to practice it, and we'll be using Jamboard and maybe some paper plots all throughout the year. Okay, here's a good example of a graph properly labeled and everything. So this is temperature inside and outside between 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. And you notice the axes are labeled. So time of day, hour goes on the bottom. Okay, so you notice it's 6 a.m., 7 a.m., etc., all the way to 2 p.m. And also the data. You notice it does not start with 0. So once again, I illustrate, maybe in math class you got to start with the origin. Here you do not have to. All right, we started with 60 with our data and went up by 2s, because our data didn't go outside of 60 degrees or below 60 degrees. So we can start with that number if we want, and then go up by the same increment, which in this case is by 2s. Okay, So make sure you pick up an easy number to count by, again, so you can figure out your in-between data numbers. And see how they have a key here. So the red line is the temperature inside, and the blue line is the temperature outside. So that's a properly labeled graph, and this is what the expectations are. So if you have two graphs plotted on top of each other, they should have a key with them, and you should have a proper title, and this is a well done graph. Okay, so thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll keep practicing these throughout the year.